Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I'm shouting at the phone a few seats away to observe social distancing. Thank you all for joining our Friday afternoon webinar training on the fiscal year 2020 cost of living adjustment and quality improvement supplemental funding application. And just to note, this webinar and training is only for DFSS funded delegate agencies that receive Head Start, Early Head Start Child Care Partnership, and Early Head Start expansion funds through DFSS. So this is a supplemental funding increase application that came down from the Office of Head Start. So these applications are due only from those Head Start funded agencies. Just hope that's clear for everyone. Again, thanks for joining us today. Hope everybody is well. My name is Madeline Shea. I work here at DFSS in the grants unit, and I'm joined here today with Glenn Lazan, the Director of Accounting from our Finance Division.
Hello, everyone.
And we also have Victor Santiago from Children's Services.
Good afternoon.
Okay, great. So I think we'll just go ahead and get started. And what we'll do is just save questions for the end. So please, go ahead and type them in, but we've reserved some space at the end for questions. This is the mission of the Chicago Department of Family and Support Services. We always include it in all of our webinars or in trainings. So we'll move along here to the agenda. Okay, so today what we'll do is cover the cost of living adjustment, or COLA, and quality improvement supplemental funds that are available as permanent increases for all of our Head Start funded delegate agencies. So we'll talk about what's allowable, what the funds may be used for, and then we'll dive into sort of the mechanics of completing the application. And we'll demonstrate the documents that you have to use and submit. And we will give you some information on how you can seek out additional technical assistance as you work to complete your application. And of course, we'll have time for questions. Okay, so starting off with the overview of the funds and what they're for. So basically, why are we here today? Back in December of 2019, the President signed a federal appropriations bill that was put together by the U.S. Congress. And included in that appropriations bill was increased funds for all Head Start programs across the country. And included in those additional funds were a total of $193 million available for cost of living adjustments for all Head Start programs, and I believe it's $250 million available for quality improvement increases for all Head Start grants as well. So those funds are administered through the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Administration for Children and Families, Office of Head Start. And as DFSS is currently the grantee for the city's Head Start grant, an Early Head Start grant, an Early Head Start Child Care Partnership grant, and an Early Head Start expansion grant, DFSS and its delegate agencies are eligible now for these supplemental COLA and quality improvement increases on top of the base funding amounts that we have for those grants currently. So that is why you as delegate agencies will now be developing these supplemental funding applications. I hope that makes sense. So first, we'll go over what the COLA funds may be used for fiscal year 20. And then we'll cover the quality improvement funds. I think a lot of the legacy delegate agencies are familiar with the COLA. They're, you know, I think in the past 3 years at least, we've been getting COLAs for Head Start each year. So they've been coming fairly consistently recently. This year, the increase that was provided in the federal appropriations bill is an increase of 2% for cost of living adjustment. And there's a little asterisk there, and that's because that 2%, we gave a little bit additional to those agencies that have early Head Start contracts and those agencies that have EHS-CCP contracts, and we'll go over that why in just a minute. But across the board, every grantee that has Head Start funding is eligible for the 2% COLA this year in FY20. The primary use for COLA funds is to permanently increase all Head Start funded staff salaries. That's first and foremost. And in addition to all current staff, the entire Head Start or early Head Start pay scale, including those salaries for any positions that are vacant, must be increased also. So included in that increase for salaries is to cover increases associated with the cost of fringe benefits that may have gone up as a result of increasing those salaries. And it's really, really important to note that any agency out there that, any delegate agency that has partner agencies must provide no less than a 2% COLA increase to all of their partner agencies as well. Then if, you know, after, you know, you've provided all of your Head Start staff with the 2% increase, you've covered higher fringe benefit costs associated with those salaries, and if you have partners and you've given all your partners the 2% increase, then you can use any remaining dollars to cover any operating costs that have increased since your base budget was approved. So that could be if your rent has gone up since your initial FY20 contract was established, executed. If you're finding that, you know, supplies, the unit cost of certain supplies have increased, you can use COLA funds to offset some of those increases in cost to operate the program as well. Okay, and then here we are, specifically speaking to early Head Start and early Head Start Child Care Partnership agencies. Now, what happens is after DFSS, the grantee provides each delegate agency with a 2% COLA based on their base contract amount, and applies the COLA increase to any applicable staff positions. Here at DFSS covers increased fringe. There were some remaining funds. So instead of applying those to any higher operating costs here at DFSS, Children's Services has decided to provide higher salary increases to all Head Start funded paraprofessionals, health aides, and data management aides. So while you don't see an additional little percentage increase on top of the 2% for Head Start and early Head Start expansion, it's because those two grants currently fund outside of the regular cost per child paraprofessional positions. And with the remaining COLA dollars, DFSS has elected to increase those paraprofessional salaries by 10% instead of 2%. However, because our Early Head Start and Early Head Start Child Care Partnership programs do not have those supplemental paraprofessional positions, the delegate agencies just received the remaining funds as part of their COLA funding allocation, if that makes sense. So again, if you're Early Head Start or EHS-CCP, you'll see that your COLA allocation is a bit higher than 2%. It's like for Early Head Start, do you remember, Glenn?
393.
I think that's CCP. 2.393, I think, for Early Head Start Child Care Partnership, and then 2.3 something, maybe 1/6 or something like that for Early Head Start. So it's just a tiny bit more, and that's just because there were remaining funds that were allocated back out to the community. So those agencies that are EHS or EHS-CCP, if you have partner agencies, you have to provide your partners with no less than the 2%, but of course you can provide them with the little bit higher increase as well. And then again, any of those remaining funds after salary increases, fringe increases, you can use to cover higher operating costs. Okay, so just so everybody knows, to clarify, the Early Head Start Child Care Partnership COLA percentage is 2.393%, and for Early Head Start, it's 2.3619%. Got a little bit extra there. And then those agencies that have Head Start and Early Head Start expansion know that you'll receive those increases for your paraprofessional, health aid, data management aid positions at the contracting stage. Okay. Now I want to talk about some federal regulations that govern the COLA funds, and specifically that is Section 640J of the Head Start Act. And this requires that all Head Start funded staff must be provided with the COLA, whether or not the agency has the ability to provide a similar increase to any non-Head Start funded staff that you may have employed at your agency. So basically, if your agency can't afford to provide your non-Head Start funded staff, you cannot use that as justification for declining the COLA, and you must increase at least your Head Start funded staff. So just want to make that clear that that is required by law in the Head Start Act. And then the second section of the Head Start Act that governs COLA funds is Section 653, and this states that any Head Start funded employee whose compensation is higher than the market rate for positions in the service area that provide comparable services are restricted from receiving the COLA. However, now, and this is used a lot as justification for not providing all Head Start funded staff with the COLA increase. However, it's really, really important to note, and this was issued in the federal program instructions for the FY20 COLA this year, that you should really be considering public school, local public school salaries, teacher salaries, support staff salaries, when you make these considerations for applying the COLA to your Head Start pay scale. So that, it doesn't mean that you can start justifying not giving all your staff the COLA increase. It's really important to acknowledge that with the public school system, there are often much higher salaries, and we need to include those in our assessment of applying the COLA to our Head Start pay scale. So I hope that makes sense to everyone. Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit about what the FY20 quality improvement funds may be used for. So while in recent years, as I mentioned, COLA increases were really common, the QI, or quality improvement supplemental increases, really haven't been. So this might be new to a lot of us. It's certainly new to me. So these are supplemental funds, just like COLA. So this means that they're permanent and will be an ongoing part of your grant. So keep that in mind as you come up with a plan for these. Now, the funds were allocated by the Administration of Children and Families to each grantee, including DFSS, based on their funded enrollment numbers. And funding was allocated at $266 per Head Start child and $366 per early Head Start child. So in turn, DFSS is passing 100% of these quality improvement funds through to delegate agencies based on the current slot allocation. So what you as delegate agencies have received in your funding letters, your COLA and QI funding letters, is the allocation at $266 per Head Start slot and $366 per early Head Start slot. And these funds should really be used to make ongoing quality improvement investments in your program. And we mentioned they're permanent. And this time around, with the FY20 quality improvement funds, the Office of Head Start is specifically encouraging grantees and delegate agencies to invest in activities that incorporate a trauma-informed approach to support children, families, and staff in programs that have been affected by adverse experiences or trauma. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. Okay, so the quality improvement funds are also governed by federal regulations, specifically Section 640A5 of the Head Start Act. And there are a number of allowable uses for these quality improvement funds. So you have a lot of flexibility here as you budget for the quality improvement funds. So Section 640A5 specifically states that these funds can be used to improve compensation, which includes fringe benefits for educational personnel, family service workers, and child counselors, in order to ensure staff salaries are attractive enough to attract and retain highly qualified staff, which is essential for a high quality program, and also to improve improving compensation so that the compensation package supports staff with additional career development opportunities. So either current or staff that you are recruiting can obtain further credentials, skills, and expertise. So if you're working on getting your staff up to the new Chicago early learning standards, the new salary minimums that were put out in the RFP and are now part of the cells, you can use these funds to help achieve those higher salaries. Also, as part of this sort of compensation piece, you can use the QI funds to provide assistance for staff to complete post-secondary coursework, and also use funds to help staff to improve credentials so that they can become certified as bilingual education teachers or English as second language teachers, and also for those teachers or staff that are interested in becoming certified to teach children with disabilities. The second allowable use of the quality improvement funds is to support staff training, child counseling, or other support services that specifically address challenges faced by particularly vulnerable children and families in your program. So specifically those families that are immigrant families, families experiencing homelessness, families involved with the child welfare system, families who are limited English proficient, families in crisis, or families struggling with exposure to violence or issues with substance use. So this can basically mean further investing in partnerships with other service providers, or perhaps developing an internal structure to better support families that face specific challenges listed here. The third allowable use for quality improvement funds per the Head Start Act is ensuring your physical environments in your program are conducive to effective services that promote school readiness and are accessible to children with disabilities. So again, they want you with these funds to make ongoing investments. So certainly, you know, some physical environment improvements may be sort of a one-time cost, but certainly could be justified under the Head Start Act for quality improvement funds. But just know that this could be an option. The fourth key use for the Head Start Act is to use the funds to employ additional qualified classroom staff in order to reduce child-teacher ratios, and also additional family service worker staff to reduce family-to-staff ratios. And again, if your agency, you know, is working, as many agencies are, working toward those new cells requirements for family service worker to family service worker ratios, this could be a good opportunity to reduce those caseloads by adding, you know, staff. So these funds are allowable for that purpose. Okay. The fifth allowable use of the quality improvement funds is that you can use them to ensure staff are qualified to promote language skills and literacy growth of children for later reading achievement. So again, this is pretty broad. So if there are ongoing activities that you can justify as promoting school readiness, you can use the funds for that purpose. The sixth use is really less applicable to our early learning system, as most of our programs, so all of our Head Start programs are full day at this point. But this is an allowable use of quality improvement funds, is increasing your hours of operation or increasing the number of weeks per year that your program is operating. And the seventh use, allowable use, for the QI funds is for improving strategic planning and needs assessments for Head Start programs. So you can also use these funds to collaborate with other community partners in order to better serve the most vulnerable children and families that we discussed previously. And number 2, immigrant families, families experiencing homelessness, children and families involved in foster care, and families in crisis. Number 8 is not applicable to us as we don't transport children in our Head Start programs. So this one is not for DFSS funded programs, but for those grantees out there that do that, this was an allowable use. And finally, you can use these quality improvement funds to improve compensation and benefits for all of your Head Start funded staff. Now, I know this is maybe a little confusing because number 1 specifically referenced education, family engagement, and counseling staff. So here they kind of do a coverall of all Head Start program staff here in number 9. So again, if you have other staff in your program outside of ed or family engagement or counseling, you can use these dollars to improve those salaries as well. As I mentioned earlier, in fiscal year 20, the Office of Head Start specifically encourages programs to utilize the quality improvement funds to incorporate a trauma-informed approach into programs. And the Office of Head Start is endorsing the trauma-informed approach as defined by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA. So trauma-informed approach is one that realizes widespread impact of trauma and understands potential paths for recovery, recognizes potential signs and symptoms of trauma, responds fully by integrating knowledge about trauma into program policies, procedures, and practices, and resists re-traumatization of impacted individuals. So there's a lot more information about a trauma-informed approach, which we can certainly give you references for. But this is sort of the concise definition. And in the program instruction and the funding letter that we received from the Office of Head Start, there are some examples of how programs may incorporate a trauma-informed approach in their programs, which I will go over now. Okay, so here are some of the Head Start considerations as it relates to incorporating trauma-informed approach in your program. And again, this is detailed in the Delegate Agency Application Instruction Manual. This information begins on page 7, so there's more detail provided in the manual. But one specific consideration from Head Start is you may use these funds to expand your mental health services. So you could improve preventive mental health screening, assessment, and interventions, enhance mental health consultation for staff support and organizational improvement to help identify signs and symptoms of trauma, and integrate these supports and services to assist in having a healing element to your program. You can use funds to ensure mental health consultation and other intervention services include a trauma-informed approach and are integrated at intake and orientation. So you can assess your current policies and procedures and work with an expert to ensure that your intake process and your assessment processes use a trauma-informed approach. And then you could build upon collaborative services with any local providers that do substance abuse, mental health treatment, domestic violence, disaster response, or child welfare agencies, or others that deal with families that have specifically experienced some trauma to strengthen that those supports for those families. You can, go back. Sorry. Another trauma-informed usage that the Office of Head Start recommends is increasing classroom quality. So again, this gets back to the hiring, really qualified staff, increasing compensation so that staff can achieve higher credentials, thus providing higher quality services. You can invest in, the professional development piece fits into this bucket. Also, investing in coaching for staff so that they can better handle stress in the classroom and things like that. Strengthening, that's a little typo. Strengthening, it's supposed to say family services. So again, increasing or decreasing your family service worker caseload ratios falls in this bucket. Providing job training, employment, education, career services to your family engagement staff so that they're really providing top-notch services to their families. Also, in this area, really strengthening those community partnerships so that you're providing support and ancillary services to any families in need. And supporting a trauma-informed workforce. So really this gets to training your staff, governing board, parent committee, and on a trauma-informed approach in better incorporating reflective supervision so that your staff feel really supported. Again, working with experts in trauma-informed care to ensure that your program is really incorporating trauma-informed practices. And again, creating a program-wide trauma-informed environment is very similar. Using ongoing assessment to track program improvements related to integrating trauma-informed approach over time, ensuring that your whole program from your staff to your governing bodies are all trained in trauma-informed approaches. Those are all sort of trauma-informed uses for the QI funds that Head Start has recommended. So again, there's more detail on this in your instruction manual, but know that these are some ways to use those allowable uses of those quality improvement funds to implement more of a trauma-informed approach in your program. So now we will flip over into the real kind of mechanical application process. So how we complete the process, what the timeline looks like, and we will go over the required forms now. So here is the timeline. Hopefully this is enough time for agencies to kind of distill some of this information, think about how to use those quality improvement dollars and develop draft budgets and budget narratives for DFSS to review by Friday, close of business, June 5th. And then what we will do here on our end is once we start receiving those draft applications, we review them closely and make sure that everything lines up with your funding allocation, everything's allowable and makes sense. And we'll go back and forth with you as we conduct our review and need changes or revisions. And then hopefully get you, a final okay, go ahead, move forward and get your final application approved by your governing board and your parent policy committee. Hopefully we'll get to at least a 2-week lead time. So whatever is 2 weeks prior to July 8th, second to last week of June, we should hopefully have all of your budgets kind of okayed by then, so that you have some time to prepare for that July 8th due date. And again, when you submit your draft budget narrative, please submit it in Excel via email so that we can easily review everything. And then when your program governance approvals are due, you can either send them here to DFSS or scan them over and email them. Okay, so here are the key documents that you need in order to develop your FY20 COLA and QI supplemental funding application. So hopefully everybody has received their individualized funding letter or letters if you have multiple Head Start funding streams. Your detailed application instruction manual. You should have also received a large Excel file that we call Attachment A that contains the template for your budget and your budget narrative. You should have also received a Word document that contains templates for your governance approvals and some certifications. And then if you're, for instance, an agency that has an approved indirect cost rate agreement, we'll need a copy of that as well. But those are pretty much the documents that you'll need to submit for that you'll need in order to develop your application, in order to submit a complete COLA QI application. So first, what we'll do is talk about the budget and budget narrative template. And again, you can follow along in your instruction manual. The instruction manual flows the same way as this presentation. So we call section 1 the budget and budget narrative section, and section 2 refers to your program governance approvals. So for section 1, you'll be completing a budget and budget narrative. Well, 2 budget narratives this time, one for COLA and one for quality improvement. And again, you'll use that attachment A file that was emailed to you. And we will demonstrate this file for you now so that you have a good sense of how to use it. It's very similar. I know everybody on this webinar has at least, even our newest Head Start and early Head Start delegate agencies at least did a baseline application back in August of 2019. So it looks very similar to that. And in fact, it's a little bit simpler. So we'll go over that now, but know that there are also step-by-step instructions written out for you in your manual on starting on page 9. So Glenn, do you want to show us the budget template?
Okay, everyone, good afternoon. Thank you again for being here. We'll walk through the budget form itself for the application. Like Madeline said, those that completed already the early Head Start applications for the FY20 year, in format it's not unfamiliar to you, but also emphasizing a really key point, because as we review them when they come in, it's so important to follow the instructions and not get ahead of yourself as you're completing them, because the instructions are very detailed and they address almost every point very succinctly and provide you the direction to complete your budget form and the related narrative. So detailed reading is extremely important, not just selective reading on there, but actually looking at it and following every nuance that's in the instructions will help you to get through this form much more successfully than just going at it without that aid in front of you. So on the cover page, I like to call this the demographic information, but this completes, as you see, it's already set up for Madeline's daycare as it is on there now. And it allows you to input your applicable information, address, contact name, telephone number, things along those lines, board chair. So the demographic information goes into there. Very important on the right where it says title of the program, that you denote which one you're specifically completing this for, because that will also drive succeeding schedules and denoting them in the related other budget schedules. So I'm just moving that about there. But that's important because it'll drive the rest of them. We'll complete further down. Enter the amounts below from your funding letter. You can see that highlighted in red. And again, the funding letters provide this information to you. It's specific to your agency based on your initial funding and all of the parameters Madeline discussed regarding the percentage increases and the dollar amounts that are particular to your agency for the particular grant.
Just a quick note, you'll see there that the cell for required minimum non-federal match is grayed out. And as hopefully by now you noticed in your funding letters that that is because there is no required non-federal match for these applications, which is really good news for completing the applications because that makes it much simpler. And good news that we're not on the hook for all that match. This time around, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Office of Head Start is acknowledging challenges in grantees and delegate agencies meeting non-federal match requirements. So as the grantee for these grants, when we submitted our application on May 15th to the Office of Head Start, we requested a waiver of all non-federal match, which is, of course, being passed down to delegate agencies. So no non-federal match for the FY20 COLA and QI application.
Very important. Thank you, Madeline. So again, the remaining information goes on to there. The last two lines on there are formula driven. Computation is on there. So let's go to the next schedule. So these again should be followed in the order going from left to right, and your instructions guide you on this also too. But this is a very detailed schedule. This is the one that drives your actual computation of the COLA, one of the two. As Madeline mentioned again, we're looking at the 2% salary increases for your positions. So working from your, there's drop-down boxes for many of the columns. Again, this is described in the instructions, but it'll guide you. Have your actual grant application that you completed for FY20 that was approved, have that with you when you're completing this, because this will serve as your guide to completing the positions and where they fall within the specific functional GABI functions in column 3 on this schedule. That will also then flow across. You make decisions on whether you're putting them in a per pay period or per hour. So there are some discretional things where you need to make a decision as it's specific to your agency. Those numbers, again, will flow across. You're asked to complete the percent of time that's spent on the program, and that will drive then the computation of the requested COLA amount for each of those positions. So a format that's somewhat similar to when you did your grant application, other than the fact that it didn't include COLA at that point. Now it's brought in here at this point. So it'll be very helpful if you have them hand in hand to look back and forth against. That will serve as your guide for completing the salaries tab on here. Job titles will effectively drive salaries on the other tab that we were just on right there. So again, that's through the drop down, it pulls from there. The personnel tab is the result and summary of all of the data that went into the detailed salaries, and it will route them to the 4 categories that are contained on the personnel tab. So make sure that you are seeing the numbers flow between the 2 schedules. There should not be any differences ultimately at the bottom line. They need to line up. If for some reason it didn't, let us know, but they should be in alignment with each other, one and the other. You'll also notice that it does call for, in column F on here, it calls for the number of employees. Again, similar to when you did your grant application, please include those numbers in on it too. That will then do the computation of the project costs on there, and related percentage of admin cost is fixed on there, so it'll be an automatic computation. So scrolling through here, Madeline has a point she'd like to make.
I just want to make a point that if you, you'll note that there's a program operation column that actually refers to the COLA. So you'll see, if we quickly go back to the detailed salaries tab, if we scroll to the right, yeah. So you'll see that there's a COLA, a requested COLA amount, which gets calculated based on the percentage increase. So maybe we scroll up so we can see an example at the top. Yeah, so for instance, if we look at, you know, John Prime, he's getting a, well, he shouldn't be getting a 2,000. He's getting a 2% COLA increase, but he's also getting 2,500 annual increase in quality improvement. So I just want to make this point that that you'll, if you're choosing to use the QI allocation for salary increases, you'll be inputting those QI increases here in the detailed salaries tab as well. And then just one other quick note on the personnel tab. So you'll see if we scroll up a little here, you'll see that in some cases there are job titles that fall in the quote-unquote GABI title category that begins with other. So you'll see there other child services personnel. So that means that it's a job title that's not specifically child health and development personnel, but it's another child services type of personnel position. In which case, those budget amounts won't automatically flow from the detailed salaries tab in the way that you see, you know, those GABI title positions do. So infant toddler teachers, you know, that they fell into the child health and development personnel GABI category in the detailed salaries tab. So therefore, they flow automatically to the personnel tab. Now, if we remember back to John Prime, his position was singing mailman. I don't know if anyone else was really sad about the passing of John Prime, but I was. So because he is an other child services personnel type position, what we would do in that personnel tab is, you want to copy and paste.
Which way, what?
Any mailman?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe you can't because it's locked. So go to the personnel tab. Because he's another, we're going to put him in 9A and type in exactly singing mailman, his exact title as it was input into the detailed salaries tab. Okay, our keyboard is not working, but essentially what you would do is write in his job title in that other category, and then his increases will pop up. And we're not sure what to put on our keyboard. I just tested it at my computer, so it should work, but yeah. So, and you'll see in the templates that were sent out, you'll see there's the example was sent out that way. I specifically deleted it to try to make this example, and then that backfired. So, sorry. Anyway.
Okay. Should we go forward?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Madeline. Good point there that I did miss on that. So that would be continuous for the other categories here: family and community partnerships personnel, program design and management personnel, and other administrative personnel and other personnel. So again, that's a flow through from detailed salaries with the exceptions that Madeline noted.
Those other personnel.
Right. We'll go to the next tab, fringes and non-personnel. So again, here we're computing the amount for COLA, the amount for QI, and those are direct inputs into the particular columns right there. So these aren't flow through, these actually require direct input on there.
And there's one column for COLA and one for quality improvement.
And again, as we said, we apologize, our keyboard just isn't working at this moment, but right here, I would just type in a number and that would, you know, transfer onto there. Health and dental, life insurance, pension, retirement, other fringes, again, items that are all described in the instructions. Travel, for staff out of town travel only.
So we don't imagine there'd be much of that in the COLA.
Yes, how true. Equipment, usually this is a very specific circumstance that we don't see often, but it is there. Supplies, here again, a lot of options: office supplies, food service supplies, other supplies. And again, reiterating the point that Madeline made at the beginning of our program, is that these aren't meant to be necessarily for new items. This is something very important that we emphasize. It's an increased cost for items that were budgeted and approved in your grant. So as Madeline said, if you've got an increase in a unit supply, that's the type of thing that could be very appropriate when you have additional COLA dollars left after salaries and fringes pick up their share. Contractual expenses, legal, accounting, other items there. Construction, that's blocked out, we won't see that. Other expenses, number of items there. Again, detailed on your instruction. So again, this being an Excel-driven form, totals will automatically come about on the schedule. They'll flow further down the road to summaries. And then there's also at the very bottom, there's a check and balance where you can compare against your budgeted amounts to see that you're in line. And it'll pop up any variances. If an error message appears in these boxes, your budget has an issue, let's just say. So there has to be that alignment of these dollars from your amount that you're provided. Please, Madeline, please.
This variance from allocation, this checks against your cover page. So make sure that you exactly enter what the amounts from your funding letter into your cover page. Exactly, so that you'll have that check and balance here.
Yeah, and if there is, for whatever reason, if there is a variance that you can't reconcile, we'll deal with it with you. If there was a dollar variance that came up or something, we'll work that out. But obviously, it's meant to flag material variance between the two numbers. So looking at here, I'm going to continue to go forward, going to the right. But on the 424 form, this, as you can see here where I'm putting the cursor, that takes the numbers from your cover page for your federal funding. There is no non-federal share, as Madeline had described. So that is those where those numbers go there. Again, signatures on here from your parent policy and your board chair. And again, as the instructions detail, we'll also need this ultimately signed and PDF'd and included with your submission. This Excel version.
Right, exactly. Once the review of your draft budgets and budget narratives are complete and you get the okay to schedule your board and parent policy committee approvals, then you'll get this signed. And we'll cover that too in the approval section.
The next schedule, the 424A, I have to say it sounds maybe interesting, but it's one of my favorite schedules because this shows you the aggregate summary of your work in the other schedule. So these numbers here for personnel, for instance, for fringe benefits, for supplies, those numbers flow from the preceding tabs. So you can see at a glance where your dollars are, which object class categories, how they're routing, and you can compare your totals again against your funding that was provided to see at a glance that your numbers are aligning with your dollar allocations for both the COLA and the QI. So this is something maybe that you want to toggle back and forth and keep looking at. I know that I always do when we're completing our schedule also too, because it helps you spot variances immediately at a glance. Also, too, to make sure you're in line with the funding dollars you're trying to achieve in your budget. The other tab, other sources of funding used to support the program but not claimed as in-kind. Madeline, anything you want to add on this one that's particular to?
No.
Okay.
Nothing to add.
Okay. COLA budget narrative, very important schedule here. I'm going to take the cursor just here to show you. Again, we ask that you really pay a lot of attention to completing the areas of information that are called for on here, that you edit it as appropriate, because while numbers do flow through from the other schedules, it calls for your input on the narrative itself to help define whether you're looking at this grant or that grant. It will, as we go through here, it's going to call for enhanced explanations on the amounts you're claiming for the COLAs, and to expand upon that, maybe again, as I mentioned, if it was based on an increase in a cost per measure, whatever it might be for a supply you're using, that's something that when the review happens of our delegate agency submissions, the reviewers want to see how you've quantified it, not just, this is for this or one line item. The more detail, the better, because it shows that there was some thought given into that and that it's actually supported by a realistic need. So we'll ask that you really go through the narrative very well to make sure that you omit those things that don't apply to this grant, but yet you also include those additional narrative items that will help to validate the request for the COLA, because these are reviewed very closely. So I can't stress that enough. It's important that you edit this really carefully. So we'll scroll through here, and again, we can see this one is denoted for early Head Start, flowing through from the cover page. If we had checked Head Start, it would be denoted as Head Start from the cover page. And then this also asks for editing here. Moving on. Here, I'm just taking the cursor to the number 1142. In this example, that's a flow through from our prior tab for personnel. So it's asking for additional comments within here. Fringe benefits in the next section. Here again, this number would be a flow through once the numbers are input in that tab. And then again, in the text, we're asking for, please be specific. If it's asking for a percentage, please include that percentage. If it's asking for a head count or a numerical count, please include that. Don't leave the X's blank, because then we're just going to have to come back to you and ask for that information, and it'll just lengthen the process as we try to get a resolution and approve your application. So again, a section there is provided for calculations, and total amount, again, is a flow through right now where I have the cursor flowing through the fringes and non-personnel tab. Remaining balance, again here, after providing the 2% for salary, for staff salaries and increased benefits for fringes, then these are the other items that Madeline spoke about that could be quantified for the remaining COLA dollars available for your agency. And again, I can't type into there, but that's where you can expand on that. Contractual partners, again, this calls for input into the text section highlighted in green. All of the text sections are highlighted in green specifically to take your eye to there so that you know you need to read through it and read through the whole thing. So again, that will necessitate an input there.
And
I'm sorry, please.
I just want to add that here, if you're a delegate agency that does have partner agencies, here is where you would demonstrate that you did provide each partner agency with the 2% COLA, minimum 2% COLA increase. Because if you do have partners and you don't provide them with that increase, we need a detailed justification, and we need to know that that agency, we need documentation that that agency's parent committee agreed to decline, and so on and so forth. So we need to know that you're providing your partners with the COLA increase as well. Long story short.
Other costs, again, green area calls for text editing.
And if you're going to, cover some or try to offset some increased rent costs or something like that, we most likely will get asked by our regional office to show documentation. So you might want to describe how much your base lease was, or your initial lease was, and how much it's gone up by here, because we'll need all that detail.
Exactly, as Madeline said, in this area here where the sample is provided, that's just meant for the guidance. But again, there's a reason why those columns are there. There's a reason why it's shaded in green. It means if that situation is applicable, we're asking that you expand and comment to every column as needed. Don't leave something blank just to push it through, because again, that'll prevent us from finalizing your application. And we'll have to come back to you for that.
And then look at that, you don't have to do the non-transfer.
And that's a big saving in this go around. So, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So going to the next small, we'll increase this size a bit here. There we go. So the quality improvement program and budget narrative, again, Madeline spoke at length a little bit ago regarding the applicable uses for these dollars here. So again, we see the program is denoted. We see a section highlighted in green, and what we know that means is it means you need to edit that section.
Yeah, and here this is sort of the intro, so we would really like a nice, concise overview of your plan to these dollars. If it's just to give everybody in your Head Start pay scale a bigger salary bump, that's fine. Just please, kind of sum up what your plan is for those QI dollars and why they're allowable based on the guidance that you have in your instruction manual. And then you'll further kind of justify that as you go through the rest of the narrative.
So again, personnel salary increases here in the narrative. Again, as you remember in the earlier tabs back here where we had detailed salaries, scrolling back here for a second, where we had the QI amounts on here, we had personnel, this is toggling back here. For the QI in column D. So now we see at the budget narrative where it's addressing specifically the personnel salary increases, again, asking for your detailed input in the describing the circumstances behind it. Fringe benefits, the dollar amount will flow through from the earlier tab that I just scrolled back to. But again, in the green text, the green shaded area, we're asking for your specific input to describe your particular situation regarding those dollars for the QI. And again, it's calling for percentages, it's calling for a number count. Please be sure to include that data when you're completing this schedule, because we will need that. Below on fringe benefits, where I have the cursor right now, these amounts will flow through the particular tab from the fringes and non-personnel tab, but the calculation itself, that's where it calls for your input to show us how you came up with that number, what's behind it, what's the basis. Travel, again, as Madeline said, we probably may not see much of that here in this current environment.
Unless there's a, professional development opportunity for staff that would increase program quality or something like that, in which case you would describe how that would impact the quality improvement efforts of the program, right there in that box.
So there could be, and again, it's very specific. And HHS, they ask that of us. They, in their reviews, they want very specific information. And the reason our form exists as it does is because it's been designed to meet their informational needs and the requests that they've asked us for from our agencies. So there's a reason why this is all detailed like this. Equipment, we spoke about that a little earlier, if there should be any. But there's various regulations behind that request also too. Supplies, again, where I'm putting the cursor, that is for your own detailed input, asking for description. Behind, up above where I just put the cursor, and that's a flow through coming from fringes and non-personnel. Contractual items here. Again, it's a flow through. Below here calls for explanation. Other costs, similar to what we had described with COLA. If there's other remainder expenses left over, then we're asking that you also complete as much detail as possible as to how you're assigning that dollar amount. And the total dollar amount above here, again, is a flow-through item from the fringes and non-personnel schedule. So then please detail that out below. And when you do that, please be sure that the amount's equal, that what you've put into your description, detailed as it is, that it actually does agree to the amount above. Non-federal match is not applicable this time, so that's a good thing. Then the FY 2020 permanent COLA certification.
And this is part of the approval package, so I'll just cover that.
Should I stop here?
Yeah. So hopefully that was a nice, comprehensive demonstration of the budget form, and hopefully people are somewhat familiar with that form as having done the baseline application back in August. We'll go back to the slide. You can just do it. How do I put? Oh, sorry, everybody. Okay. Okay, so once you've completed your draft budget and your budget narrative, and you're getting ready to submit your draft applications via email to us. If your agency, if this is applicable to your delegate agency, you have an indirect cost rate agreement, or you have a policy documenting that your agency is elected to take the 10% de minimis rate, then you have to, with your draft budget and budget narrative, submit documentation of that indirect rate agreement or your de minimis policy as well. So again, on June 5th, when you send in your draft budget and budget narrative in Excel format, you'll also send along, if you're budgeting for indirect costs, documentation of that as well. Here is, again, the due date for the draft application, so Friday, June 5th, and you will submit your draft budget and budget narratives, and if applicable, your attachment B to the COLA Grant app email address there. Okay. Throughout this process, we're always available for any questions. So if you have questions about the budget form or the budget narratives, you can email Glenn and me, Madeline, and you can always CC the COLA Grant app email address too. We monitor that regularly. And then again, your draft budget and budget narratives are due on Friday, June 5th. So now what we'll do is roll into section 2 of the supplemental spending application process, and that is your program governance approval. So again, back to our timeline, June 5th, you submit your draft budget narrative. DFSS here will take some time to review and reach back out to you if there are needed revisions, and we'll do back and forth until we determine that your budget and budget narratives are good to go and are ready to be put before your governing board and your parent policy committees for approval. And at that stage, then you'll work on your governance approvals. And so basically, you have to create a separate budget and budget narrative for each funding source that you have. So if you are an agency that just has every single Head Start funding source that we have available, so Head Start, Early Head Start Child Care Partnership, Early Head Start Expansion, then you have to do 4 separate budgets and budget narratives. However, if you have both Head Start and Early Head Start, that's actually technically one grant. So you can submit your approval package for that application together. That can just be one. But Early Head Start Child Care Partnership and Early Head Start Expansion are separate grants with separate grant numbers. So we need separate approval packages for those 2 grants as well. So the governance documents, we have sent along in your funding letter email a Word document that contains most of the templates that you'll need for this section, but you also have to provide some documentation that your agency has, and this might be copies of your bylaws, the section that shows how many members who need to meet a quorum. If you conduct your approval via email, for instance, we'll need copies of the email as well as a summary of your electronic approval process. But everything else is pretty much contained in that Word document, which we'll cover in a minute. So just want to kind of touch upon the various documents that you'll need to gather for this part of the process. So again, this is particularly relevant now that we are sort of in quarantine. It's important as you plan for your approval of your supplemental funding COLA and QI applications that you review your bylaws and see what types of flexibility you have around conference call meetings, voting by email. If your bylaws allow for delegation of votes to a program or executive committee for approvals, these are all good things to know as you plan for approval of your application, so that, you know, at the last minute, if you're kind of wishing that you were able to do a conference call but it's not in your bylaws, reach out and let us know, and we'll work through it. But I know that these are crazy times, so we will certainly work with you. But certainly review your bylaws, see what your flexibility is for the approval process. So now I'll go through each document that's required as part of the approval package. And the first item that needs to be signed by both your board chair and your parent policy chair is, we call it attachment C1. It's that SF424 form. And actually Glenn showed it to you. It basically has your summary budget funding amounts, and it gets signed by your board chair and your parent policy committee chair. And again, only print the 424 form out and have it signed once, you know, DFSS has approved your final COLA and QI budget. This is what it looks like. I won't toggle back and forth and pull it back up, but this is what it looks like. It's provided to you in attachment A, your Excel file. It's a tab. And the budget amount is automatically generated. So all you have to do once your budget is final is make sure all the information on here is complete and filled out. And after your governing board and parent policy committees have approved, then have this document signed. The next key attachment for the approval package is the COLA certification form. And I will pull that up just so everybody can look at it. This also is located in attachment A, that Excel file. It's the very last tab after your QI budget narrative. And it has to be signed and dated by your board chair. And this is this form here. And basically what this certifies is, and a lot of times when we get the certification form back from agencies, it's blank. And that means, that's great. That means that every Head Start funded position in that agency's pay scale was provided with at least 2% COLA. Now, if this form gets filled out, it's because either somebody in, you know, your agency makes more than the executive level 2, which really shouldn't be working on the program if that's the case. But anyway, you would list all the employees here in this form who are not receiving the COLA. So for instance, if you do have a person, you know, maybe a program director who's worked in your program for many, many, many years and is just outstanding and has received many merit increases because of that, and they make way, way, way above the market rate, then, and you'd rather use, you know, that the limited amount of COLA dollars to increase the rest of your staff, then you would list that person here, their title, what their annual salary is, how much time they spend on the grant, and then why they are not receiving the COLA. So that's really what this form is designed to capture. Here you will list all those positions that you're not providing the 2% increase to and why. And then your board chair will sign and date it. And that is attachment C2. Okay, that's what it looks like. Okay, attachment C3, this is a statement of approval. Now this is where you will go to that Word document that was sent to you with your funding letter and the other informational documents. And here we have basically drafted out for you some text that demonstrates that you know, your governing board and your parent policy committee have discussed and approved and voted to approve your FY20 COLA and QI application. And then this statement basically gets placed onto your agency's letterhead and then gets printed and signed by your board chair and your policy committee chair once your grant has been approved. And again, this is in that attachment, we call it attachment C here. This was emailed to everybody. And you'll see here, this is attachment C3. So, you know, this gets put onto your organization's letterhead. Make sure you update this information, which grant you're referring to, and you update that, so on and so forth. And then, but this is basically a good template to use for your approval statement. Okay, all right, and there it is, just a little snapshot. Attachment C4, this is a parent policy committee approval form. This is also located in that attachment C, and basically what it does is compile information from your parent policy committee and collect, if you do an in-person meeting, everyone who voted, who's a member of your parent policy committee, you know, their name would go here, and then they would sign that, yes, I voted to approve the FY20 COLA and QI application for whatever your agency is. Make sure you update what grant is being referred to. Please include your quorum information here and the date that your parent policy committee voted to approve. Now, if you're using a conference call as your way of voting to approve this application, or your voting process is via email, what you can do is still use this form to capture which members voted for your application by you know, typing their name here, and then here in the signature column you can just say approved via conference call or approved via email in lieu of their signature. Okay, so that is attachment C4. And again, there are detailed instructions for filling each of these out in your instruction manual. There's a snapshot of it. Okay, attachment C5. So we need further documentation that your parent policy committee basically came together to review via conference call or even via email and shot questions back and forth over email, whatever the case may be, whatever is allowable per your bylaws. We need documentation of that process, and that's captured through minutes that you'll send. So these don't need to be super lengthy, but we do need specific information in these to document that your FY20 COLA and QI application was approved. So please, include the language FY20 COLA and quality improvement application and refer to which grant it is, Head Start, Early Head Start, EHS-CCP, and so forth. And include how many voting members were present and how many voted to approve, how many abstained, how many voted against the measure. We don't need a super lengthy thing, but we do need certain specific language in here that really kind of captures the discussion and how the voting process occurred. Now, if you do a vote by conference call, we still need minutes of that call meeting, which can look very similar to how in-person meeting minutes look. If your vote occurred via email, we need a copy of each email that approved from each member that approved the application. We also need just a really brief overview of the electronic voting process. So for instance, on July 1st, an email was sent out to all the members, with the application and including the budget and the budget narrative and a summary, of our plan for quality improvement dollars, or however your process looks. And then, these many members voted to approve via email. Here are the questions that were fielded, and they're just a little summary. And these, I know that this is labor intensive. This is by request of our regional office and the Office of Head Start. So we just want to make sure that we're getting them everything they need to know that everything was approved. And again, there's no template for that because those minutes are something that your agency would produce. Attachment C6. Again, this is something that your agency would approve. This is just a little snippet from your parent policy committee bylaws that shows what the number for meeting a quorum for that committee is. Just need that one page. We don't need the whole bylaws. Again, this is a request from our regional office as well. Again, there's no template because this is coming from your bylaws. And then basically, these are the same documents, but for your board. So this is, now we're moving into the board approval process, which should very much mirror the approval process for your parent policy committee. So we do have these templates located in attachment C, same kind of form. I won't roll back into it because you know what it looks like, which is this. And you would just want to make sure that you're diligent about updating which grant you're having approved, your agency's name there, and the quorum numbers and the total membership, and the date that your application was approved. And again, the signatures, if you're voting electronically, just list each name of the member who voted to approve the application and then simply state approved via email or something to that effect. And then very similar to the parent policy committee approval process, we need a copy of your board meeting minutes. demonstrating that the application or applications were discussed, and there was a vote to hopefully approve. Again, like Parent Policy Committee, we need that section of your board's bylaws that document quorum requirements. And I know that you have sent these previously, and we ask that you send them again, especially because things may have changed. Okay, and then this one, C10, attachment C10, this is only if you, your delegate agency's governing board specifically delegates responsibilities or approval authority to, you know, a single person or a very small advisory committee or something to that effect, which is allowable under the Head Start Act, but you need to have a policy or an official resolution that demonstrates when your delegate agency board voted to approve this delegation of authority. Very few agencies have this, but if you are one, please provide us with a copy of the policy or the resolution. And then we kind of demonstrated, we went back and forth. So hopefully everybody feels pretty comfortable with the program governance templates. Those of you that have been delegate agencies for a long time are pretty familiar with these at this point. But again, we are always around to help you with this process. So here is kind of a submission overview for section 2. All of the C attachments, your program governance approvals, again due Wednesday, July 8th, by close of business, and you can either do a full color scan to our email address there, or send a copy to my attention, and we will scan it and upload it. If there are questions about this section, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and ask. The very back page of your instruction manual contains a complete checklist for every single document that's required as part of your FY20 COLA and QI supplemental funding application. Again, we need one budget for each funding source. If you have Head Start and Early Head Start, you can combine your approval package for those two, but everything else needs to be unique. So use that checklist. I think it's helpful. Technical assistance, please, if you feel like you need like a, kind of intense one-on-one walkthrough of either the budget forms, or you want to talk through program governance approvals, we're more than happy to help. Let us know so that we can set up a time that works for everybody. Everybody is really, really busy right now, and things are crazy. So just reach out to the COLA email address and me, and we will figure out a good time for TA. And again, here is our contact information. If you have questions about either of the two sections, please reach out. And I think that Victor mentioned in the chat earlier that this training will be recorded, so you'll be able to review this, and we'll make the slides available as well. So now, I guess we'll take a couple of questions. I think we went longer than I had hoped. Not so bad. there a way to send out the PowerPoint so that we can make notes on it? Yes, of course. Well, we'll save left, but we will make sure that everybody has a copy. Will the higher COLA amounts for EHS be a permanent increase going forward? Yes. Will you? Yes. Distribute the PowerPoint. Yes, we will. To make certain I understand, the QI funds can be used to provide tuition assistance to all EHS whom are majoring in early childhood education and help them pay for the different certificates. Yes. So helping, especially education staff advance their credentials, that is an allowable use of QI funds. Are the QI funds for improving salaries considered permanent increases? Can agencies increase salaries by more than 2.4%? Yes. Yes. The QI funds, number one, will be a permanent increase. Number two, increasing staff salaries for, for the purposes of retaining highly qualified staff, attracting highly qualified staff is an allowable use of quality improvement funds. Good question. Does the COLA increase retro back to any specific date? And I'm so sorry. I think this is probably all over the budget narrative and maybe the instruction manuals, but I should have been very clear. Yes, the COLA increases are retroactive back to the start of fiscal year 20. So that is December 1st, 2019. And that the same goes for EHS expansion. Okay. Can you include health insurance for the QI fund? So, you can include increased fringe benefits as part of compensation for quality improvement. Hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, let us know, Alicia.
Oh. Can we add for de minimis for COLA for QI? Yes. How do we know what QI amount to enter on the detailed salaries page? That is up to you. And it depends on, how you want to utilize those QI funds, how much you want to increase staff salaries, which staff salaries you want to increase, but you have to be able to justify that it's going toward the improvement of quality for the program. So really, you'll be entering those amounts, based on your plan for those funds. I know that's not super specific, but take a look at what you can do with those dollars. Take a look at your staff, and then budget accordingly. Okay, Sylvia, I think maybe you emailed me. Do we need to fill out the whole budget narrative or only the areas where we are planning? Yeah, you can just fill out, if you're not, for instance, claiming any supplies, any increased cost of supplies in your COLA, you can leave that blank because we'll end up hiding those rows anyway.
And especially because there wouldn't be a flow through of dollars.
Right.
Also, that's the narrative.
Can you use your COLA and QI funds to fund expenses not covered in your base funding budget? You may use your QI, you may not use your COLA fund to cover expenses that were not included in your base funding. Now, you can use QI funds to cover funds not covered in your base budget, but you must demonstrate that those funds are allowable for the Head Start Act, which we covered. So, does that make sense? Is there a requirement for sharing/splitting QI funds with partner agencies? There is no requirement, but we really, I can't remember if there's a section in the budget narrative for QI that asks how your partner agencies will benefit, because we need to know that QI funds, the way the plan for those is benefiting, you know, your directly operated program the same as it's benefiting your partner site. So we need to make sure that the quality improvement hits all of your programs equally, hopefully, or targets the areas of need the most. And oftentimes partners need a little help with quality improvement, right? Does COLA certification need to be signed even if it doesn't apply to us? Yes, you can just, what happens is if you give every single person the 2% increase, you just leave it blank and then you have it signed. So basically your board chair is certifying that, you know, everybody receives, there's no people who are exempt from this, and then sign it, if that makes sense. It seems a little counterintuitive, but yes, you would sign the blank form. I missed your mention about a para. Can we use QI funds to hire a para? Yes. Pay for a portion of the social worker. Yes. Well, I don't know. Do these funds need to be expended by 11/30/2020? Glenn?
We need to get them out this X number of days, you know, 60 days after we get our notice of award on that. So that could take it really close to that date. Let's confirm that just to make sure, given the time frame we're operating under now, and we'll get back to you on that. Let's check that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll check that, Sarah.
Please explain exceeding salaries eligibility for COLA increase. So you want to make sure when you're providing COLA increases to your Head Start pay scale. I think the question is about if you have staff that make way higher than the market rate, and we want to be really careful with that because really first and foremost, the idea is to provide all your Head Start funded staff with the 2% COLA right after that. Now, if you happen to have you know, a very, very well compensated staff person whose salary, you know, far exceeds, you know, do your due diligence, explore what, you know, teachers make at PTS and also at local other, you know, community-based organizations. If you happen to have a teacher that makes a salary that's way beyond even PTS, then that person may be excluded and it would be justifiable. But in many cases, you know, because we are in the city of Chicago and we have a giant, you know, public school system with union staff, oftentimes our salaries are a little lower than theirs. So it's pretty hard to justify excluding community-based organization staff from the COLA. Now, if you have a really, you know, like your executive director makes good enough money and they don't need a COLA increase, and that's one thing. But again, make sure that you document that and their salary amount on that COLA certification form attachment C2. What if we did salary increases in the fall of 2019? Let me get back to you on that one. Let me do a little searching and I'll get back to you on that one. Do partners have to certify that they will increase the salaries of their staff? Now, I am not an expert on the partner framework. I don't know that we have one in the room today, but we'll look into that and see. Now, I think, you know, as a delegate agency, you hopefully have a process for contracting with your partner agency and ensuring that, you know, when you contract with them funds that you had received from DFSS, that there's an agreement as to how those funds are being used and a monitoring process. So we'll get back to you. Can we include a security system in our classroom as QI? I will look into that in that specific example, Sylvia. I think so, because it kind of gets at that trauma-informed piece for physical environment. But so let me get back to you. Can we be selective about which staff roles and want to add QI increases to? Yes, you just have to justify how it improves the quality of your program and what areas of your program are in particular need of quality improvement. Can you please clarify the increase for paraprofessionals, health aid, and data aid? Yes. So these are supplemental positions that are allocated in our Head Start grant. Specifically, those 3 positions are allocated to agencies in our Head Start grant. And then there are, in our very small early Head Start expansion grant with 5 delegate agencies, each has a paraprofessional. So because the number of paraprofessionals varies based on the size of each program, these positions sit outside of the cost per child. And therefore, you know, they're not just like kind of included in the COLA, although, so because they're your staff, you would automatically provide each of these positions with a 2% COLA increase. But what you'll get in your contract if you do budget for these positions is you'll see a much larger, like an 8%, additional 8% salary increase for those positions when you get your contract for Head Start. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Let us know if that makes sense, Don. We talked about that. We can have Tiffany say something about that.
Huh?
Hey guys, how are you guys doing? This is Tiffany Junkin, DFSS.
Hi.
Hello. So there was a question about partner sites and do they have to certify? So we haven't implemented an official certification process for this, and so I just wanted to address it. I want to make sure that every delegate agency who has partners understand that we're going to really be relying on our delegate agencies to ensure that these COLA increases, that they do trickle down to the partner sites as well. So it really is going to be a part of your responsibility working with partner sites to ensure they get COLA increases. I want to make sure that that's understood. We haven't went to a certification, although I'm not necessarily saying no to the idea, but we haven't went there yet. And so we really need your help with making sure that COLA happens for partners as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We have many employees that will receive a minimum wage increase 7/1. How do we include these increases and document them in the application? So, yes, the minimum wage for the city of Chicago increases on July 1st from $13 an hour to $14 an hour. So, you can prorate your COLA increases in your budget accordingly, and describe that in your budget narrative. So do not include with this application, oh, the paraprofessional. No, I'm sorry, that was confusing. Please include your paraprofessionals, your data management aides, and your health aides with the 2% COLA. What will happen is when you receive your contract, those agencies that have Head Start will receive a little bit more. It's kind of messy because we kept how do I explain this?
It's not tied to the cost per child.
It's right, because it sits outside the cost per child. Please just provide your paraprofessionals with a 2% COLA and know that in your contract there will be a slightly larger increase for those positions. But for the purposes of the application, please apply the 2%.
I think you answered all the.
Yeah. And again, if there's confusion over those, let us know. We will address. It seems like there's confusion. Just want to make sure I understand correctly. For the attachment, we can do one just for Head Start and Early Head Start. That's just so we need a separate budget and budget narrative for each funding source that you have. Now, if you have both Head Start and Early Head Start, you can combine your approval package for Head Start and Early Head Start together. Okay, it looks like we are out of time, and we've gone through hopefully everything that we possibly could. And again, please don't feel like this is the last of the opportunities for technical assistance. We are more than happy to answer your questions, to talk you through things. Just reach out. But hopefully this was initially helpful. Please read through your instruction manual carefully and don't hesitate to ask us questions. You know, the sooner the better with the questions. So again, thank you. Hope everybody stays safe and well, and have a really wonderful Memorial Day weekend.
Have a good weekend, everyone.